adding some filters is going to help us a little bit right here. So the way to get to filters, any one of these columns, there's a little icon of 3 lines and a down arrow, and if you just hover over it, you get all these options. So one is to sort in different ways. We're not going to even get to editing formulas today, but the one we're going to start with is filtering. So you just click filter, and then you get a pop-up screen. The column is kind of fixed because you started with the column. And then the 2 things that you're going to change are operator and value. So operator, you have a ton of choices. And some you use frequently and some you use less frequently. It defaults to is equal to or is in, and that pretty much means that it has to match the entire field. So this is really good for kind of limited data. Like if you have a really long kind of text-based field, like this wouldn't work for a title field unless you had the entire title and it was exactly the way it was in the catalog. Less than and greater than, things like that, work with both numbers and dates. Null and not null has to do with whether the field that you're looking at, null means it's empty, there's nothing there, and not null means there's something there, but you don't really care what it is. I have never done ranked. I've had really bad luck with contains, all, or any. Like often I'm working on some text-based field and I'm looking kind of for a keyword, and this doesn't work the way I expect. So a little later on we're going to look at like and not like pattern match, and I've had better luck with those. But for this case, we're just going to stick with is equal to and is in. And depending on what field you're filtering, you get different options for value. So this library name, you just get a drop-down list. You can't type something in because it wouldn't necessarily match your data. So this is a really easy filter to do. We're probably going to go for the main library. You just choose what you want and hit OK. So now if we take a look at the results, we only are looking at Trinity. This now looks a little, you know, I'm going to delete the fiscal year temporary and put it back in because I think we sorted by that.
Yeah.
And that changed the view, so let me delete it. And we'll add it back in a minute. So now we're back to just Trinity College being all one merged cell, all of our locations and our counts. And now we're also going to limit by location name. So what's the main, main collection, right? Okay, let's do that. So back to criteria, and I kind of went quickly before, let me slow down. So we're going to hover over those 3 lines. You get your choice of what we're going to do. We're going to choose filter. And of course, you're logged into your own institution, so you can pick whatever library and location you want to. We're going to leave is equal to, and for our choices, we just have a drop-down. And I just heard from our Trinity colleagues that we want main collection. And I'm going to hit OK. So you can see all of your filters down here in the lower half. And you have things over here where you can edit a filter, you can delete a filter. Editing brings you right back to where you were before, that pop-up screen. I have not tended, what are these guys? Copy and paste. I've never used those. Mostly I've used edit and delete. Okay, so if we click on results, we've limited both by library and by location. So we just have a single location now, and we just have one line in our report. And that's it.
How would you add LC call number?
I wonder if that's in fulfillment. LC classifications. I have not done much work with classifications, and it's a little, see how there's all these groupings? I think you can.
There's one for like main class code. Go down.
Classification code?
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, so you can break it down by classification. And, oh, unknown, that's interesting. Maybe those are not LC numbers. Are there some things in the main collection that aren't LC?
Are you in Trinity? Sorry.
I'm in Trinity.
It could be their technology
Oh,
that we check out the best.
that could be. I'm going to delete that for now just to keep things a little simpler. Okay.
Like if you want to add, instead of the LC code, if you want to add the LC subject area, I believe that would be group 1. And then group 2, group 3, group 4, group 5 are the additional LC subject classifications. I believe that's correct.
Are those predefined, or can we go into some configuration and define what those groups are?
I am not 100% sure. I believe they might be predefined.
Whoa. That's interesting. See, you can play around with so much in here, and there's a lot that, like individual people tend to have their specialties. So when you're doing reports, you're going to end up becoming a specialist for your area. For now, I'm going to delete this. Okay. So we did a filter that was basically a drop-down. I'm going to add back in our fiscal year. Loan date. And I'm going to end up filtering it just to the current year. Actually, let me delete this just for a second to show you something. Whoops. Delete. I just want to show you loan date first. I'm not going to click results because this is going to give a new line for every single date that something was loaned out. That would be kind of crazy. But I just want to show you filters. So if you're using, whoa, this is not what I expected. Oh, that's because I'm on loans. Okay, that's better. If you're just doing a date and not something that's based on a year or a month, you actually get a calendar to choose from. So I could look at everything that actually was loaned out on July 5th. This is not a very practical filter, but you could conceivably do that. 27 things were loaned out that date. You can also do greater than or less than, so you could do your own sort of customized date range rather than a whole fiscal year or a particular month. I'm going to delete this. So let's go back to loan fiscal year. So this does not, if we filter on this, so loan fiscal year, hover over the 3 lines and choose filter. And this doesn't give us that calendar view, it's a drop down. It's more like when we looked at filtering by location. So we scroll all the way to the bottom and we're going to filter for 2018. So again, we have very specific filters, so we're still going to just get 1 line in our results. What? Oh, thank you. Oh, that's so interesting. This is a good reminder. So I added a column, and then I deleted the column, but the associated filter did not delete. And we'll actually look at some examples where we want to do that. In this case, I want to delete this filter. So once you add some, these 2 halves really work pretty independently. Okay. Now, we have specific library, specific location, specific fiscal year, and then a count of how many loans we had. Okay, so we filtered using a drop-down. I just showed you what it's like to filter a more granular date where you actually see the calendar view. Let's see. Okay, I want to see. Okay. So let's remember this number, 21,200, because I'm going to add something else if I can find it. Okay. I'm not sure if we mentioned before, but analytics contains all data that was ever in ALMA, including deleted data. So if you delete a bib record or an item record or a user, that is still in here. And whenever you run a report, you should always think whether or not you want to filter out anything that was deleted. And most of the time, you probably will want to filter that out. So I don't want to know circ stat. Let's say in this case, I don't want to know circ stats for things that no longer exist in our collection. I'm not a fulfillment person, so that you might not care about that, but just for display purpose or instruction purposes, let's pretend that's true. So